We're going to start our study of financial maths with these four concepts: profit, loss, discount, and VAT. I'd like to remind you that VAT is 15%, and that is something that you need to know off by heart. Okay, and so whenever we have a product and we need to add on its VAT, we would do a percentage increase. Okay, and the same for making a profit. So here we would have an increase, and here we would have an increase. And that increase will always be an increase of a certain percentage. Okay, so what do we need to do that? We need a formula to increase by a percentage. Okay, so here's an option, and then I'm going to show you what I think is a much better idea. So let's look at the first example. The first example tells us that an item is bought for 80 Rand, obviously by a retailer, and then it is sold at a profit of 20%. So what you need to do here is you need to add 20% of 80 Rand onto 80 Rand. Does that make sense? You need to take the percentage of the original amount and go and add it on. So what you could do is you could first work it out. You could go and say, let's get 20%. And of means times in maths, remember. 20% of the 80 Rand. You could work that out and then add it on. This is a step to be done on the calculator. 20% of 80 Rand is 16 Rand. And then what I would do, if I'm doing it this way, is I would then add on my 16 to my 80. Okay, so I would say 80 Rand plus my 16, and I would get 96 Rand. And I'm hoping that this makes sense and that you can think about how you've done previous percentage calculations before and remember that you probably did it this way. Okay, so introducing a really nice formula, but you will have to remember it off by heart. Okay, we don't give these kinds of formulas out in a test or an exam. Here you're going to take the number that you have to do the increasing by. You're going to multiply it by a fraction, which is 100 plus the percentage increase, so that will be the increase amount, divided by 100. So let me use this example and show you how to use the formula. Using the formula here, I would take my number, which is 80 Rand, and I would times it by 100 plus the percentage increase. So it's going to be 100 plus, what was the increase? 20%, because profit is increase over 100. Okay, that's actually 80 times 120 over 100. You might be able to do that step in your head. Okay, and of course what we get to is 96. Should I put the Rand signs in? Yes, only at the end though. All right, we don't need them all the way through the calculation. We just want to know that you know what unit you're dealing with right at the end. Okay, a reminder here that if you're going to calculate a selling price when the profit is being added on, that would be a percentage. That's what we just did here. Or maybe the way that they're going to phrase a percentage increase question is talking about something being VAT inclusive, which means that you get given an amount that does not have VAT added, and then you need to go and add it on. Example 2. All items are sold with a VAT of 15% in South Africa. If the price of a calculator is 190 Rand without VAT, what is the final selling price including VAT? Now, a lot of these problems will have multiple words with them, so it's a good idea to go and highlight and underline all the key things. Okay, so this will be the increase amount, the increase percentage that I go and use in my formula. That is the number that I'm going to increase by. And I must remember, of course, that is without VAT. And then, of course, what they want is the amount including VAT. So that is percentage increase. Now that was my heading, so it's quite obvious that that's what I'm going to do. But of course in the future you will get these mixed up with different kinds of percentage question, and you will have to identify the fact that this one is an increase question. Okay, so what was our formula? Do you remember it? I'll scroll up and give you a quick look. This one here. Okay, we're going to take our number, which is the 190, and we're going to times it by 100 plus the percentage that we are increasing. So it's going to be 100 plus 15, or you can just say 115 divided by 100. And you can punch that happily into your calculator and you will get the answer, which I'm going to put the rand sign down in front of, 218 rand 50. The next thing we're going to look at is how to reverse an increase. And this is sometimes difficult to see because we can understand a decrease, but that's quite different to reversing an increase. And a really good example of that would be we need to calculate the cost price, but we're given the one after you've added profit, or when they say we've given you the price where VAT is included and you have to now find out the price before VAT was added. So those are two really good examples when you would have to use this formula of reversing an increase. So it's doing an increase backwards. It's finding out what it was before the increase. Okay, this looks almost identical, but what has happened to our formula? Well, look, the 100 used to be in the denominator, and the 100 plus percentage used to be in the numerator, and they've swapped around. Okay, so here, that's definitely going to be necessary to remember this one, because doing it long way is going to be really confusing. Okay, let's look at this example. Petrus sells coffee mugs at a 45% profit. Okay, so we know the percentage profit, and then we know that he sells them for 21 rand 75. That is the profit percentage, okay, already added. Now I'm not going to decrease the 21.75 by 45%. I'm going to find out what it was before it got increased by 45%, which is quite a different thing. Okay, so let's follow the formula. I'm going to take my number, my 21.75, and I'm going to times it by 100 over 100 plus my percentage, so that is 145. Type that into your calculator and you will get 15 rand. Okay, now let's just do a little check. This is not necessary for you to do when this is a test or a homework question, but this just helps you understand that what we did actually worked out. Let me increase it back. Let me take 15 and let me multiply it by my increase formula. So that is 100 plus my percentage, so 145 over 100. Check that out on your calculator and you will see the answer comes to 21.75, and that is just a check to see whether my reversing of an increase worked. If you took this and you calculated 45% of 21.75 and then subtracted it, you are not reversing an increase. You're doing a totally different thing. You are working out a decrease of 45% of this amount. Here in the question we're dealing with, that 45% is actually of the 15, not of the 21.75. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to decrease by a percentage. And I'm imagining a question from some people watching this video. Is that not the same thing as reversing an increase? I mean, at the end of the day, this number went down, right? It went from 21.75 down to 15. Okay, so isn't it just exactly the same thing? No. In this question, when we reversed an increase, what we did was we reversed it by 45% of the 15, which is where this check came in. Okay, if I then increased it by 45% of the 15, I got the correct answer. But let me show you what would happen if we tried to decrease the 21.75 by 45% of 2175 instead of the 15. So let's have a glance at this formula here. I would take my number, my 2175, okay, and I would times it by 100 minus the percentage, so 100 minus the 45% over 100. Type that into your calculator and see what you get this time round. 11 Rand 96. That is not 15. And why is it not 15? Well, because the 45% in this formula is now 45% of the 2175, when originally the 45% that was added on was 45% of the 15. Okay, so this would not be correct for the question we were doing a moment ago. But that formula is going to be used when we need to decrease by a percentage, which is not the same thing as reversing an increase. We're going to recognize a decreasing by percentage question because we're going to have a loss instead of a profit, or we're going to have a discount when shops decrease their prices, say at the end of winter sale or the end of summer sale, and so on. All of these formulas look very similar, don't they? So I would suggest you put them all down on one page together and you learn them off by heart, and also learn how to distinguish between them. Tauber sells stationery usually at a profit, but a certain batch of pens has been on his shelves for too long and now he decides to sell them at a loss. Okay, so it's not a profit, it's a loss of 40% to get rid of them. He bought each pen for 8 Rand. What will he sell them for? Well, clearly less than 8 Rand, eh? So I'm doing a little bit of mental calculation as well. 40% loss, that's a lot. That's really quite a lot of money that he's losing. So we're going to take our 8 Rand. We're going to multiply by 100 minus the loss percentage over 100. Okay, plug that into your calculator. And you'll see you get to 4 Rand 80. Okay, so it's a lot less than 8 Rand, but as I predicted, it was always going to be a whole lot less. Let's look at another example. Melcia sells t-shirts at 150 Rand each. Louis buys 20 of these t-shirts. I'm already thinking 20 times the 150, right? Okay. And he agrees to pay cash for them, and so Melcia gives him a 20% discount for paying cash. Okay, so a discount is a percentage decrease. How much will Louis pay in total for the 20 t-shirts? Okay, definitely got to do something with that 20 and the 150. Okay, so I'm definitely going to start off by saying 20 times 150 Rand, so I can work out what it would have been before the discount. Okay, type that into your calculator and pause the video for a moment and then check your answer. I get 3,000 Rand there. And then what I need to do is I need to organize the discount. I'm actually going to write that as a little separate heading. My discounted price must be less than 3,000, right? Okay, so let's go back to the formula. I'm going to take my number times 100 minus the discount over 100. So I'm going to take my number, which is 3,000, and I'm going to multiply it by 100 minus, what was the discount? 20% over 100. Again, pause the video, type this into your calculator, and make sure that you're getting the same thing as I am. I get out 2,400 Rand, which is 20% less than 3,000. Moving on to reversing. So this would be that perhaps we had a discount and then we're going to add it back on again. Or when we calculate the cost price when a loss was being made or a discount was given. So we calculate the amount before the decrease. And it's the same as when we did the increase reversal. It's calculating the amount before that change happened. Okay, so once again, we have our formula, and what's happened? The numerator and denominator have swapped. Okay. Lindiwe bought exam pads at 20% discount for R9.60. What was the original price of the exam pads? Okay, so I'm going to take my R9.60 and I'm going to multiply by 100 over 100 minus the discount percentage. So that at the bottom is just 80, right? And my answer is 12 Rand. I'm going to finish up with two examples that don't specify which formula to use. Okay, so here we have the selling price of an item is 575 Rand after 15% profit was added. What would the selling price have been if the profit was instead 25%? This question is going to have two parts to it. Because first of all, we need to know what was the original price before you added the profit. And then we've got to go and add on a different profit. Okay, so the first thing I've got to do is I first need to know what was the price before the 15% was added on. Then I'm going to get an answer. Okay. The second part of my question, I'm going to now want to calculate the price after the 25% profit is then added. You've got four things to choose from. You're going to do a percentage increase, or you can reverse an increase, or it's going to be a percentage decrease, or you can reverse a decrease. And so now the challenge comes in to pick which one of these four that we've worked with are going to be relevant here. We're definitely going to use two of them. So we want to know what was the price before a 15% profit. Well, a 15% profit would have been a percentage increase, right? But I want to know what was the price before that. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse an increase, and I strongly recommend that when you do these types of questions that you put a little subheading in there for yourself so that you know what it is you're doing and you show yourself that you are identifying the question type, which really is most of the challenge in these questions. Plugging things into formulas, pretty simple. Knowing which formula to use, not quite as simple. So here I'm going to reverse an increase. So I'm going to take my number, my 575, and remember we're going to try and get these formulas off by heart, and that multiplies by 100 over the increase, which was 15%. Okay, and that gives me 500 Rand. Now I need to take my 500 Rand and I need to increase it by 25%. So that is now doing a percentage increase. So we take, I'm just going to put a little heading here. I've put a heading of percentage increase again to remind myself that I have identified this question. I'm going to take 500 Rand and multiply it by the 100 plus the percentage, so 100 plus 25 over 100, and that's going to give me, now think about it, should it be more than 575? Yeah, because that was with a 15% profit. This needs to be quite a bit more because now it's a 25% profit. And when you type that into the calculator, you'll see that it is a 625 Rand new selling price. In the last example, we need to calculate the percentage loss of an article. Hang on, calculate the percentage. Okay, I think we're going to need a new formula here. Calculating percentage loss of an article that had a cost price of 320 and a selling price of 280. Okay, I'm going to add another formula here, but you might know one from EMS in previous years. When you need to calculate the actual percentage, this formula is going to work. We're going to take the big amount minus the small amount over the original one. So we're going to basically get the difference between the two, and then we're going to make that a fraction out of the original amount and times by 100 to get a percentage. So that's going to be 320 minus 280 over the original. And this is where it'll be obvious whether we're calculating it as a percentage of 320 or a percentage of 280. So think about it. We want the loss. It had a cost price of that and a selling price of even lower. So this amount here, my 320 minus 280, is the amount they lost. On what? What was the original amount? The beginning one was the cost price, which is 320. So you might have a formula that involves cost price and selling price as a percentage. So you're more than welcome to use that if you'd like to. This is then over the original price, which is 320. And then I'm going to make this fraction into a percentage. And that will give me not an amount in rands, but an amount in percentage. 12.5%. What was it? Loss. Here's a summary of all the formulas we've just used. When we increase by a percentage, it'll be because we want to know a price after profit, or perhaps a price after VAT has been added. When we reverse an increase, it'll be that we wanted to know something that happened before we added on profit or before we added on VAT. And the number that they give us will be the number that has already had the profit added on or has already had the VAT added on, or for any other example, has already had an increase added on. When we are decreasing by a percentage, it will be because we are needing to calculate an amount after the loss has been taken off. Or it would be the amount after a discount has been taken off. But when we reverse a decrease, what we want to know is we want to know the amount before the loss was taken off, or the amount before the discount was taken off. So here, for both of these questions where we are reversing something, we are calculating the amount before an increase or decrease was applied. Here at the bottom, the formula that I added right at the end was when you need to calculate the actual percentage. We're going to take the big amount minus the small, no matter which way around it was, over the original one. And then we're going to times by 100. And that will work for a number that increases or a number that decreases.